We make the streams louder.
Alright guys, we starting today off at the house, getting ready to take off. I got me a nice little prop back here. Need to order me these new, there's like some struts in here built in that hold this little back hatch thing up. Need to hit up the eSomparts.com. But got some parts for the Civic. I got some things loaded in here. We're getting ready to go, or I'm taking some stuff to the post office real quick. And it looks like Jamie's car has a little bit of a coolant leak. I'll see if I could get her to stop by the shop a little bit later, take a look at that. I mean, I'm not sure how many more trips this thing is going to make in the, you know, the turbo V6 form versus the V8 form. So I did order some more parts for that today. We did not forget about the Civic, but yeah, sorry, my voice is a little bit weird. I've been sick, or kind of halfway sick, the past like 2 days, and just kind of getting over it, like a little cold type of thing. And so yeah, I guess let's go rip this thing around. I came out here to the junkyard to see how Junkyard Dave's doing on my truck. On the 2017 F350 rebuild, I think. What door do you think it is? Oh hey, Dave, remember when this was only going to take a week?
I mean, I remember when I had all the parts.
When you had all the parts? Okay, well I brought you some paperwork. I need you to sign some stuff on my title. Haven't seen Dave's videos. He's been working on this 2017 F350. It was in a front end collision, and it basically completely like pop canned this front, and the whole frame was squished.
Looks way worse than it did on the truck.
Yeah,
like it's sitting outside, it looks bad.
Yeah, so he's been working on this thing for, I don't know, it's been like a month, off and on, here and there, waiting on parts and doing some other stuff. He was gonna do it in the shop, and then he's like, "Oh, it'll take like a weekend." If
I mean, if I had all the parts, I could have done it in 5 days.
Yeah, probably. That's a big freaking job though. So
I had the whole thing stripped in like
yeah.
a day and a half.
And where's the little dents that you were on here?
Right there.
Oh man, I almost wouldn't even worry about that.
Because the bed covers that, but I think a PDR guy could just.
Oh yeah, PDR could. Get Ethan over here. That's some. Got some stainless exhaust, 5-inch straight pipe. So when you're towing, you can get that nice drone.
We'll see.
Yeah, looking pretty good. All right, fired up. He's waiting on one of these things.
Yeah, I didn't know this was broken.
He didn't think it was broken, so he's gonna fire it up. Get that no limit delete kit on here. Some new batteries, all new front end stuff, all the expensive pieces. Oh yeah. That was nice. Oh yeah, it squirts. Give her a rev. Oh yeah. Hell yeah, David.
Yeah, not bad.
That's nice. Yeah, Dave, after seeing all my 6.7 stuff, he had to join that 6.7 gang. He had to one-up me though and get a 17. Yeah, this thing's pretty cool. Looks like you'd almost fit in here too. It's nice and big.
It is, it's big.
So this is the frame that was on that truck. And you can see how tin canned it was. And saying like the whole thing is actually pretty twisted too. Like the left side is twisted. Yeah, you could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming down. Yeah, the whole front end of this thing was mashed.
I mean, the transfer case was almost touching the frame. It's touching the fuel tank.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, and so and clear title too.
I almost think this thing got hit.
All right, so brought Jamie's car down to the shop. It's a little bit later in the day. I think it's like almost 11 o'clock at night. But brought Jamie's car down here. Gonna let it sit here for a minute, see if I could get that little coolant puddle, or at least a few coolant drops to kind of show up and see where it's exactly at. There's an oil cooler on the front of these engines, and maybe it's around there. There's like 2 hoses that go there, but I have this one here that you can almost reference. that you can see right there. There's 2 coolant hoses on the front. And yeah, so the interesting thing about Jamie's car, so this was the first ever like auction rebuild I ever bought. And I basically bought this from the Insurance Auto Auctions like 3 years ago. And you know, I was super stoked on it. You know, it's the turbo V6, 6-speed automatic, all-wheel drive sedan. Really awesome freaking car. This thing feels just absolute, I don't know. It's just, it feels like just such a good, like, well put together car. It feels like a BMW, but like half the price, you know, and that's kind of the thing. I mean, the interior, you know, if you're going like down like a bumpy dirt road or something, you'll get a little bit of squeaks here and there. But overall, it's definitely an awesome car, and it's very unique. You don't see them around here a lot. I mean, it's pretty damn quick. It's basically the same exact setup as like the Turbo X. So it has like the B284. I forget the exact engine code for these, but yeah. So a lot of people were, you know, a couple of Saab people commented on my last video, you know, talking about the 5.3 swap in my 9.3 wagon, and you know, saying, hey, you know, the V6 is a good platform. Why are you doing that? And I mean, honestly, one of the things is the turbo upgrade. So as you can see, this turbo is very specific. Basically, this is the whole turbo. So see how it's bolted right there, and it actually bolts to the head. So that the turbo is basically the kind of flange manifold where it meets up. So it's a very specific and very weird. As far as upgrading it, it's not really worth it to upgrade to like the 19T like drop-in. It's pretty expensive. There's no manifold options. There's nothing like that are like reasonably priced or available. And so I also thought it would be very, very unique to just do this. Obviously, turbo V8s or V8s in general just make a lot of power. If you guys didn't know, like 3 years ago, I had LS4 in my drift car. I had it in there for almost 3 years, or 2 years at least. You know, went between like LS1 to like a 6-liter, back to an LS1 with heads, cam, nitrous, all kinds of stuff. And they're a lot of fun. They're cool engines. I think in drifting doesn't like LSs. Drifting hurts LSs, but I think for street cars and street engines, they make gobs of power, and especially in turbo applications. So I'm really, really stoked to get this thing going. But the thing about Jamie's car is, like I mentioned earlier, is it is all-wheel drive. So I'm going to be putting it on the lift here in a minute, and then that'll kind of give me another opportunity to kind of go over some of the all-wheel drive components and stuff that that I may need for the future. Maybe spot some differences. Supposedly, you could bolt the transfer case right. It basically mounts in between, right on the output flange of the transmission. So basically, instead of a mount going right here, you would basically bolt the transfer case, and then that would go out towards the back. But we will look into that, just because I have been watching some cars on the auction. I've been looking around for some all-wheel drive cars. But the other thing is, they are, you know, like the body control modules and all that stuff. It is like an electronic all-wheel drive system. So as far as integrating all that stuff and getting it to talk with each other, it's not as simple as just like bolting it in and it being like four-wheel drive all the time. There is, you know, some biases and stuff in there, and electronic like locking differentials, and basically, from what I understand, that it could send like up to 100% of the power to the rear wheels. Supposedly, I don't know. Again, that's I haven't looked into it 110%, but you know, we're looking into it as we go. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff cleaned up, get it on the lift, and I guess we'll go from there. So got most of my mess cleaned up, or at least in the process of cleaning up. I went ahead and threw both of these engines on a pallet, just so that way I didn't have to you know, be cherry picking them around this whole time, or try to make stands or something for them. Also that way, so I could still swap components, so I could still work on the transmission side of this thing. I could pull the clutch and all that off of here. If I decide I want to like cut this turbo in half and make like a single turbo kit, and try to blow up my engine before we put this in there, I could. It just gives me lots of options, as well as just being able to move it out of the way. I need to throw this in the scrap pile, and I'll be able to get rid of that pallet tomorrow. So technically we didn't really make, bringing another engine into the picture, we didn't really make that much more of a, take up more space. We're actually kind of getting rid of some stuff because this hangs off the pallet quite a bit. So get rid of that subframe, figure this stuff out. I'm stoked. But I'd need a forklift. I mean, you've seen me picking up the engine and all that other stuff, trying to get it away. The cherry picker just won't, I can't put engines on pallets because the cherry picker isn't wide enough to be able to actually get on there. So that's why I'm using the lift how I am over there, and that's probably not the greatest thing for it, but this is like a 1980s like freaking Challenger, so it's rated for 7,000 pound, but it's probably like a 12,000 pound by today's standard. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, sweep this crap up right here, and then go ahead and throw this guy in the lift. Jamie said that her low coolant light came on, so I hopped over here and I went ahead and replaced these lines. This is a common thing with the 2.8. The turbo is right here, and coolant lines that cool the turbo, or one of them at least, goes right here up into the coolant thing, and this goes right there. So obviously that gets really, really hot. These are some newer upgraded ones that ESOB Parts sells. These are actually off of the 9.5, the later model. I believe the 2000 and... I forget exactly what year they start, but I know they quit making them in 2011, so I'm pretty sure it's like 08 and up. But yeah, with the 2.8 in them. But yeah, they have this little metal kind of heat shield stuff on them. So I installed those the other day, and we're still getting a little bit of a coolant. Well, I didn't see the puddle in the garage. There wasn't really that big. It was just like a little tiny drop thing, and I was like, oh, maybe that's just condensation out of the exhaust or something. But yeah, so I thought I was losing a little bit of coolant out of there. But now we're going to go ahead and go all the way up and see if we can figure it out. Alright, so looking underneath the car, it seems like it would be kind of hard to figure out when it's hot, obviously, because it kind of evaporates. But if you look right there, that looks kind of like a trail, and I smelled it, and it smells like coolant. Looking up there, you can see there's a little wiring harness. Let's see, where's it at? Let's see if it'll focus on it. Okay, see that wiring harness right there? And it's wet. So that's basically right underneath the coolant bottle. So I'm assuming the coolant bottle is having some issues, leaking a little bit, and that's probably causing it to kind of run down right here, and then evaporate off when it's hot, and then drip when it's cold, because this is kind of the spot where it was in the garage. And so yeah, you can see here is how the transmission mounts on this one. So I should be able to mount the transmission. We're talking about the V8 swap now. So V8 swap, the transmission should mount right here. The other, see where this downpipe is, I'll probably have to make something for a mount right here. The all-wheel driver, the XWD is what Saab calls it, is actually this is the transfer case. So you can see right here, this is the transmission and this is the transfer case. So see how it bolts like right here and right here. If we go over to this transmission right here, this is basically what we were just looking at. So the downpipe on the turbo car comes down right here, but this is what I was talking about right there. I think I could just bolt transfer case straight to this tranny right here, and then obviously I have to figure out some stuff with the exhaust and downpipe. Maybe we'll have to like chooch a turbo stack out the hood, but it's kind of good to know. That's why I'm more so looking at this thing. I'm assuming there's an electronic plug that plugs into it somewhere and tells it what to do. But yeah, and you can see the driveline goes to the back, and this goes to the electronic. You can see it's a Haldex electronic. It's an ELSD. I think one of the CV boots right here is actually ripped, so it's been flinging some grease around. So I'll probably have to replace these axles pretty soon, but they're not popping or doing anything. But yeah, so This is obviously electronic. You can see the wires and stuff going to it. This whole rear subframe and everything is different, and I believe the gas tank is different for the all-wheel drive because it goes up a little bit further right there. So just a lot of things, I guess, to consider in my all-wheel drive adventures, but nonetheless, I think we will be able to get the V8 car, at least front-wheel drive V8 swapped for now, and then maybe at that point search for an all-wheel drive car, like a 2-liter one, and then maybe just go ahead and V8 swap that one. You know, after I kind of figure out the whole V8 front-wheel drive thing, then we'll do the V8 all-wheel drive thing. So if you know anybody who has an XWD parts car or a wrecked car or something like that, let me know. I know there's some Saab guys out there. But yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and get on eSaabParts.com and order one of those coolant bottles. As you guys know, eSaab Parts has been kind of supporting me and my Saab builds for about I don't know, basically the past like year and a half, 2 years. And a lot of people are kind of scared to buy these Saabs, just assuming that, you know, you can't get parts and all that stuff. But if you get on eSaabParts.com and you have a Saab, you just basically type in the VIN number or just, you know, year, make, model, you know, like trim levels and stuff, and basically it breaks everything down like pretty much exactly like it would at the dealer. And you can order it, have it at your door, you know, 2-day shipping within a week, whatever. So again, I do have a code, I believe it is MotionAuto, all caps, and I think that'll save you 10% off or something like that. I'll put the link in the description. But again, Matt over there, he's the owner, or one of the owners. He's, again, he's supported the channel for a long time, and always sends me out little trinkets and stuff before I even know I need them most of the time. So, yeah, I guess that's probably it for this tonight. I'm going to look at the turbo setup on the other 2.8 for a little while, and then probably call it a night. So before the end of the night, I want to go ahead and pull off this whole turbo system off of this 2.8T. The V6 that is currently in the car, and what I almost want to do is like cut it off and like cut this turbo, because it won't actually ruin the turbo. I'll just, you know, disconnect the center section of it. But I almost thought of like welding like a T3 flange or something to that, and then actually, you know, mounting like a GT30 or something on there. I thought that would be a really rad turbo to put on this engine, because this engine is a great engine. And you guys are going to think it's stupid, but one of the reasons why I almost want to do the LS swap on it is, see right here, there's that crack in this little flex tube. That's a really common issue, and so when I'm driving my car on the interstate or something like that for a long period of time, you could basically smell like the carbonation or carbon monoxide like building up in the car, and you know, obviously having a baby and stuff, that's not a good idea. So I could either replace this piece, and you know, that's kind of a whole setup, or I could just swap a V8 in it. So that's you know, that's kind of my logic. Or the other cool thing would be is you know, do like a GT30 or something. But it's interesting, look at this turbo. See the oil drain? It's like that nice hard line, and then it goes right into the block right there. That's pretty interesting. I wonder if I'll be able to duplicate that on the V8 or not, or if it'll even freaking need a turbo. It might just be dope, man, eh? Alright, so I got basically the center section and the front off of it. Just disconnected the little V-bend here. The oil drain, the oil feed, both the coolant ports. This is like the crankcase ventilation thing that kind of sucks it from the valve cover. Yeah, you can see this back turbine housing is it's pretty interesting. See how big that wastegate is? The wastegate flap, and then you could actually see where it's divided, going into you know, basically both banks are completely separate, pretty much going the whole way through the turbo. You can see it even has a little center divider right there. So it is a true like dual, you know, divided type of setup, and it's interesting because like one's smaller and one's bigger. I don't know, it's pretty interesting setup. But so again, this basically turbine housing is bolted to the head. See, it's bolted right there, and this is all one piece. So it's a interesting turbo setup. And kind of my idea was maybe being able to just kind of get away with like cutting off this at like an angle right there, and then basically just welding a flange on it. So either like a T2 or a T3, something along those lines, to where you could actually mount a turbo, or kind of making another, making your own manifold, putting a little pedestal there essentially, and then kind of just wind the pipes and everything yourself. So that's kind of that was an idea that I've had for a while, and that's kind of one thing that I wanted to do to these. The 2.8 was actually throw like 3076 on it. I think that would be such a rad turbo. But again, I think the V8 is going to be sweet, but I was just mostly looking at this to see if that would be an option before we put it in there, which, I don't know. I think both would be pretty fun. The other thing I thought about doing was more so waiting the V8 until I get an all-wheel drive chassis to start out with, or just go, I guess, from the get-go with this. But maybe we'll pull this off and see what it looks like if I do cut it off, because like I said, I don't really need this. The turbo on Jamie's is good, and the other one is good, and we have the housing like this. The only thing we would ever need to replace is that right there. So, I don't know, I could cut that up. Got this thing off finally. Lots and lots of little pieces that I don't think you would, I absolutely don't think you'd be able to do this in the car. At least with like the radiator and all that stuff installed, because you had to remove both of the heat shields to get to this front piece to actually be able to pull that off. And it's nice that those slide out, because it kind of makes it seem like you could do it on the car at that point. But I just don't think you can. But this turbo is interesting because you can see it basically has a little shelf right here, and then one bolt that holds it in. So it has these little ledges on the back, and it literally just hangs right there, and then bolts one bolt. But this is some really, really high strength steel, or cast steel, or whatever it is. I tried using the Sawzall on it just real quick, and it basically just killed the blade on it right away, just trying to cut it right there while it was still on the engine. And yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if you'd be able to do that, but it'd be kind of funny to just like hang a GT30 on it right there, almost stick it right where this factory drain is, and then like bolt like a coolant line and like the oil line to it, and then just like fabricate around that. Alright, just for funnies, I went ahead and set this, this is a 3076R. This was on an SR. It was actually going to go on the giveaway car a while back, and it's actually not a 3076, it's a 3082, so it has a bigger trim exhaust wheel on it. It's basically like a 3582, but a 30 compressor side, and a 3582 like the 82 side, turbine side. So it's bigger wheel in the back. It's a really big wheel actually, and but yeah, so couldn't get the right T4 adapter, so this is a T3 with a 63 housing. But literally, look at that. Like, bolts would bolt right up to that oil drain. The coolant, one of the coolant sides would bolt right on. The oil thing would probably bolt right on the top. Use all the factory lines, and you could pretty much just mock it up from there. In the front, honestly, like, that would probably be just fine too, with the sizing of everything. And pretty much all you'd have to do is, figure out the wastegates, or a wastegate, and, blow-off valve and stuff, because this one does have the internal wastegate as well as the electronic blow-off valve. But, I don't know. As you can see, that gets kind of complicated, and if you're going to do that, you might as well do that. So, I don't know. I guess that's it. So, that is going to be it for tonight's video, guys. Sorry if it was just kind of a bunch of rambling and thought processing, but that's kind of what I have to do in order to figure stuff like this out. I think the clutch and everything should work out just fine. So yeah, I went ahead and I ordered some new motor mounts for the LS. You know, the motor mount that goes on the front and the back, just so I have something to mock up from. I need to order a couple little of these pulleys like that, because they got bent. This one for the power steering, that one got bent too. Somebody mentioned me putting like an LSA blower on here, and I think that would be really rad too, but it would be right in the way of like the power steering reservoir, and I don't want to mess with that a whole lot. I think, you know, freaking turbo will be good. So yeah, I think it's gonna get pretty tight with exhaust and doing all that type of stuff, but overall I think it should be a pretty freaking fun project. The plans are tomorrow is to come down here and actually get the Civic primed. I am planning on working on this. I'm not just completely abandoning it, but I know there's gonna be downtime between both builds, so I might as well at least have something to do, two active things going at once. It's kind of my thought process. So I did get a lot of parts for the Civic today, and we will start working on that soon, basically as soon as we get the body and everything painted. So I do appreciate you guys watching. If you guys like what I'm doing here, be sure to subscribe. You know, liking and thumbsing up the videos and commenting and getting good interaction and everything always helps everything out. Yeah, freaking Saab videos, Saab V8 things. If you guys want to watch the video rebuilding Jamie's Saab 2, be sure to click up there. But see you guys later.